following presentation is brought to you by S&M Cattle Consortium. In the thunder of the crowd, one sound rises above all others, the heartbeat of the stands. To the superfans who bleed for it, they paint their souls in team colors, drive through hell for one more Sunday, live and die with every play, from tailgates to glory, from heartbreak to legend. These aren't fans, they are the heartbeat. Welcome to where the real legends stand. Heartbeat in the stands.
Scott, just tell us a little bit about when did you first become a Cardinals fan, and what sealed it for you as a Cardinals fan?
And I think about it, and I was born, you may or may not even know this, I was born in Southern California, in Ventura, California. My folks lived in Santa Paula, California, but Santa Paula didn't have a hospital when I was born. But my dad took me to my first baseball game in the mid-'60s, and it was a Dodger game. They just happened to be playing the St. Louis Cardinals. Of course, I wasn't old enough to really get passionate about anything, but the thing I remember most is that birds on the bat uniform.
Good evening, everyone. We're in Los Angeles at Dodger Stadium for the first game of the final road trip of the year as the Cardinals play the Dodgers. Very pleasant evening for baseball here. The Cardinals playing with a rather different lineup than they have employed most of the year, as Dave Ricketts makes his first start behind the plate and some of the other bench warmers get into the game.
I like that team, even though I guess I was supposed to root for the Dodgers, although my dad was from Missouri originally too. And so I'd say that was the initial thing that I remember. I became a fan of baseball, and because of that uniform, I was attracted to the Cardinals, and then lo and behold, my family was from Missouri. We ended up moving back to Missouri, and then it was just a natural progression there of following baseball, following the Cardinals. Of course, those upstart Royals started, but anybody with any class or culture stayed with the Cardinals, and that's what I did. So up until 2011, beyond doubt, my favorite team of all time was the 1985 St. Louis Cardinals. They were just super Whitey ball. Of course, they'd won the World Series in '82, and they had much of the same players. You know, you talk about Ozzie Smith, you talk about George Hendrick, Jack Clark, Terry Pendleton, Willie McGee, Mrs. McGee's little boy. Vince Coleman came up in '85. Todd Worrell came up in '85. Tommy Herr was on the '82 team and '85 team. So that '85 team, they won 100 games that year, and we just barely beat out the Mets. It went right down to the wire. Of course, the Mets won the World Series the next year. But that's when you had two divisions in each league, and it was tough to even get in the playoffs. You had to win your division to get in the playoffs. There wasn't no wild card crap. So that '85 team was just tremendous to watch. Stolen bases. I think every year, Whitey Herzog, the manager, would say, Roger Maris's home run record will not be in jeopardy from the Cardinals, because we could never hit 61 homers as a team, let alone one guy. But then we got Jack Clark in '85, and of course he hit like 30 some. But I think Roger Maris was still safe on the home run record. But anyway, that team was just so exciting. Best defensive team in baseball. They played on that AstroTurf. Vince Coleman set the rookie record, I think, that year. He came up. He didn't come up till like a month into the season. He had 100-some stolen bases. I should have did some research and homework. Then you had everybody could steal bases. Ozzie, Tommy Herr, Willie McGee, Andy Van Slyke, an underrated Cardinal who later got traded to Pittsburgh and played on several of their World Series teams. Just everybody on that team. Terry Pendleton could run. We had Lonnie Smith for a minute. He could run. So, that was just a tremendous team. And to answer your question, up until 2011, they were by far my favorite. After 2011, we may have a tie for first. I don't know how you could ever top the greatest World Series game in the history of World Series. Game 6 in the 2011 Cardinal game. There's so many avenues we could talk about there, and I don't want to bore your audience, but there's nothing like having lifelong friends that you're watching the game. And of course, I'll bring up another mention of another thrill I had here after this, but that Game 6, and to any of you viewers that watched it or haven't watched it, it's still on YouTube out there, and I watch it on occasion. But there's just nothing like that game where the Cardinals were one strike away twice from being eliminated in Game 6, come back and win it in the classic way they did, David Freese being the big hero. And then, of course, you're worried about Game 7 because you still have to win it, but it ended up being a no sweat. But so that was probably my all-time ultimate. I had a very dear friend of mine, Cardinal fan for life. He's a little bit older than I was. I remember we were on the phone that night. I think the game was over at 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning. He had to work the next day. I think it was on a Thursday, if I remember. And just the thrill and ecstasy that you felt, and then talking to a buddy that's went through everything you have, and that buddy of mine has since passed away. And so I still have that memory of us just talking for an hour after that game. My first game you go to in St. Louis, you walk into the stadium. This was the second Busch Stadium that I went to. And you see the green grass. Of course, it was AstroTurf, but you know, you see that, you smell the ballpark, you just fall in love with it. And then, so I'd say the first time you go to a Cardinal game, I still remember that, and it still stands out. It stands out with when is in 2006, Cardinals in the World Series. We hadn't won since, some people say we hadn't won since 1982, but we did win in 1985. It's just not official, I guess. But so it'd been a long drought there, and I was able to watch Game 7, it's Game 5 of that World Series when the Cardinals beat the Detroit Tigers for the first World Series win since 1982. And I happened to be with my daughter again and our dog. And I don't know if my daughter was, I don't know how old she was, maybe 7 or 8, but in preparation, because we were up 3-1, of course, going into Game 5, I had champagne, and I had her one of those little cherry bottles of sparkling water or whatever. They always serve it during Christmas. So I had that, and at the end of the game, of course, she didn't really know what was going on too much, but she knew something special was happening, and I told her she needed to watch this because she might not see it again. Fortunately, we were able to see it again in 2011. Haven't seen it since, but so I wasn't too far wrong. But that was a special night. Her kind of seeing something, she knew something was going on, but not really realizing it. But she got to drink her little sparkling water. I popped the champagne, and my old dog, Howie, he got champagne in his water bowl that night also. So that's another big special night. You know, that's a little bit of a complicated issue, of course. I know Mr. McGuire would never do anything untoward that would help him get that record. Now, the other players I can't speak to, but back to your, you know, at that time, nobody even thought about that stuff. So, but it was just so exciting. Yeah, McGuire, I never will forget, you know, when he came to us, of course, it was because of Tony and stuff. We made a midseason trade the year before to get him, and he came at the trade deadline, and I mean, he stunk. When you probably won't remember this, but he stunk. He was terrible till about the last week of the season there, a couple weeks of the season. He kind of started hitting some homers, and that's when he decided to stay because he couldn't believe it. I've heard him say even in interviews that, you know, he was going to be a free agent. The Cardinals just took a chance on him. He was going to be a free agent. You know, he's a California boy, and you figure he'd go there somewhere like that or somebody make a big play, but he loved St. Louis so much. The fans, the first night, he said he went up, got a standing ovation, you know, 40,000. That's when we could bring some fans in. And the 40,000 people gave him a standing ovation when he was introduced. Came up, he struck out, and the fans gave him a standing ovation going back to the dugout. And when he signed there with St. Louis after, you know, sometime before the season was even over, he cited that as, he said he couldn't believe it. You know, he'd been playing all these places where if you do something great, they love you. If you don't do something or you mess up, they boo you or they stink. And he was just so impressed with the Cardinal fans. And of course, you know, he had a relationship with Tony and it's pretty much all his coaching staff. So he decided to stay. And like I say, at the first, I was a little ambivalent because, man, this guy, you know. But then the next year, of course, they had the home run chase. And I mean, it was just unbelievable because part of it was people weren't used to seeing stuff like that. You know, I remember as a kid, somebody, I think it was somebody for the Giants, I can't remember who it was now, but he had like going into the All-Star break, which is, approximately the halfway point, he had like 30 homers, I want to say, and everybody thought, oh my God, he's got a chance to break Maris's record, because everybody thought it was kind of an untouchable record, at that time. And he ended up with like maybe 48 or something. It's just that second half gets you and all the scrutiny. And then when McGwire and Sosa were going at it, and of course I'm McGwire and watched all the games and such. It's just unbelievable the stuff he would do. And then almost the worst part was at the end, Sosa got the lead. Like McGwire was the first one to break Maris's record, as you alluded to. And the Maris family were there, and McGwire was very deferential to them, because that was like their father's legacy, who Maris did play for the Cardinals in '68, by the way. Maybe '67 and '68. He was a Cardinal, but he was kind of at the downside of his career there. But anyway, McGwire breaks his record, and then Sosa gets ahead of McGwire. I want to say like Sosa had 64, McGwire had 62 or 63, but then the worlds corrected themselves, and of course McGwire hit 70 that year. I think Sosa ended up with 66 or something. But anyway, that was unbelievable chase, and maybe some of the fruit of it is you became a fan, and a Cardinal fan, maybe because some of the relationship we had there and all that, but you stumbled on it yourself, a lot of it by yourself, and so that was a lasting impression that got a good Cardinal fan out of McGwire's home run streak. So maybe that's the most important thing of the whole deal. But no, that was an unbelievable time, because it hadn't been, you weren't used to it. It was something so outrageous, and that guy, when he hit him, and you would never leave. I remember I was at a couple of the games that year, and maybe the Cardinals were getting beat. I remember one specific Cardinals getting beat, and you say, well, let's go beat the crowd. Oh no, wait, what's the lineup? Oh, hey, McGwire's coming up in the bottom of the ninth. The Cardinals could be down 8. Hey, McGwire's coming up. We're not going. We're going to stay. It was that kind of impact. That's a great point. And back then, now they don't do it now so much, but back then if you showed up early, the home team would take batting practice first, and they would let you in the park and you could watch. And oh yeah, he would. The batting practice was unbelievable. But I'm going to relate that to maybe we'll talk about another great Cardinal with his name starts with a P here in a minute. Is that going to be on the agenda?
We can make it on the agenda.
Okay. Well, I didn't know if you were going to bring up Pujols or not, but so yeah, McGwire put on a show, unbelievable show, and so people would go and watch it. And I would also like to say that McGwire was the hitting coach in that 2011 team, did an excellent job. All the players praised him. He knew hitting. He knew the mental part of hitting. And can you imagine the pressure he was under, like the last 2 months of the season, trying to breach that record? Because but he was a great hitting coach for the Cardinals also. I was going to relate batting practice that you brought it up with Albert Pujols, because I remember, I think it was 2001, could have been 2000. We went to a game in Kansas City, and this friend of mine that I mentioned, Coxie, rest in peace. Coxie and I went to a ball game, and it was early in the season, and Pujols, and so we were walking in, we were going to go. McGwire was still on that team. He was hurt a little bit, but he was still on that team. So we walk in, and as you're walking in, you hear, they're taking batting practice. And the sound of the balls, I know you've probably heard people say this, I've heard people say this, oh, when he hits it, it just sounds different. Well, with McGwire, that was true. We're walking into the ballpark, and I hear this crack of the bat, and I told Coxie, I said, hey man, let's hurry up. McGwire's batting practice. We go in there, guess who it was?
What?
Albert Pujols! That was my first inkling that we had something with this Pujols kid. Because I thought it was McGwire hitting the ball, but we go out there and it's Albert Pujols. And so I thought, man, who's this guy? I knew a little bit about him. I knew the year before he was like unbelievable in the minor leagues, and they won a AAA. He didn't play AAA. They put him up in AAA at the last week of the season to get him into the playoffs. They won the championship that year in AAA, the Pacific Coast League, I believe. But anyway, and just a little sidebar, David Coxie and I went up there, we got our seats, and we were talking about the team, we're talking about Pujols, and right behind us was Albert Pujols' former wife. sitting right behind us for that game, and she was very friendly, and we were talking to her, and she was telling us all about Albert and this and that. But that was just a little sidebar. So we're in Vegas, and at this, it's in Caesar's Palace. I forget the name of it. It's like a big sports memorabilia shop, and I guess Pete would sign there on occasion. And one time we were there, Pete's signing. So told my wife, lovely wife Tammy, your aunt, that, hey, I'm gonna get old Pete Rose's autograph. Because, you know, along with Cardinals, like anybody I could get an autograph for, which I'll tell you a story of my biggest regret, not on autographs here in a minute. But so we go there, stand in line, you gotta buy a ball from them to get it signed. So you buy it, you stand in line, and you know, I'm excited to meet old Pete. I think he's a pretty good guy and all this. And I never was a Reds fan or a Phillies fan or Expo fan or whoever else he played with, but I respected him as a player. So standing in line there, I finally get up there, and there's a woman behind me, a nice looking lady, you know, and we were kind of talking and stuff, and you know, I didn't think anything about it because you're in line waiting. I finally get up there, and you know, how you got to do with these guys, you got to say, oh man, Pete, you're great. I really enjoyed watching, you know, build them up, give them some kudos and stuff, whether you meant it or not. So I'm up there saying, hey Pete, man, it's great to meet you. You're a big fan of yours, all this and that. And you know, Pete's doing this. He handed me the ball. He said hi, I guess. And starts writing. He's looking. He's signing my ball, and he keeps looking. You know, and what the heck are you looking at? Now I realize he's looking at the woman behind me. And then I guess based on his life, I don't know what happened, but so I get out of the way. The lady comes up. He stands up. He gives her a hug and like, oh, what can I do for you? So I did get his autograph, but I don't know if he remembers it. But he might remember that lady that was behind me, because she might have got a special autograph. But the autograph I really regret is, you know, I used to work with a major retailer, and we would have Saturday morning meetings, and you had to go, and I enjoyed going. And you go, and every once in a while they have celebrities come in and sports people come in and this and that. And one day I'm going in there, and and so I've sat and I got two stories I'll tell you. No, sorry, Wynn, if I'm ruining your.
No, you're fine.
But anyway, so hey, make this like part 3, part 4. We don't just have to have one part. So I'm there, and Hank Aaron is there, and he's like sitting right in front of me, and you know, they kind of tell you, they say, hey, don't bother people for autographs, but I always did. You know, I didn't care. So, and I had a buddy that let me kind of get behind where they kind of stand before they came in, but he was already sitting there, and I was sitting like behind him, and I didn't have anything for him to sign. And I think, you know, he could have said no, I don't know about it. Kind of, most people when they show up at that meeting, you know, they're trying to make everybody happy because they're trying to sell stuff. Usually, I forget why he was there, but he was there, and I didn't have a ball. So after that, every Saturday morning meeting, I had a ball in my truck that I kept just in case. And then one day later, there's, let me get this straight. So there's Nolan Ryan, Ozzie Smith, and Gary Carter. They were there to sell something or whatever. And they're standing in this little runway there before they come on the stage. And my old buddy that worked the AV thing, he said, hey man, we got Ozzie, all these guys here. So I went and got my ball, went down the back way into the thing, and they're all just kind of standing there. So I went to Nolan Ryan. I said, Mr. Ryan, can I have your autograph? He said, sure. Ozzie, can I have your autograph? Sure, man. I wrote it. Gary Carter standing next to him, and he reaches out his hand for my ball. I turn around and walk out. I don't want your autograph, Gary Carter. You're a Met. So that was a great story, too. I could just look at the face like, without saying a word, I think I really hurt his feelings there because he was ready to sign it, and I didn't want him to sign my ball, especially with Ozzie on it. But anyway. Let's start at catcher. Of course, we've had a lot of great catchers. Ted Simmons, who was a Cardinal Hall of Famer. Tim McCarver won 2 World Series. Probably should have won another one. You know, so we've had a historically great catchers. But I guess you're going to have to put Yachty behind home plate. First base, again, we might could take some liberties with positions, you know, but at first base, you know, I was always a big Jack Clark, the Ripper fan, but he was only with us 3 years, and the last year he was kind of banged up. But you got to go with Albert at first. Second base, again, I'm going with Tommy Herr. Shortstop, of course, there's only one, the Wizard. Now, third base, man.
A lot of options.
There's a lot of options, and maybe recency bias. Of course, I was a big Scott Rowland fan. Arenado, but just based on performance, of course, Rowland won a World Series too, but I'm going with Rowland. I want to say David Freese, but maybe we'll let Freezer be a DH or something, but let's go with Scott Rowland. Outfield, left field, you're going to have to go with the base burglar, Lou Brock. Center field, now I'm going to name two guys, and center field has been traditionally very, very powerful for the Cardinals, but let's have Mrs. McGee's little boy, Willie, and Jim Edmonds. Willie's going to play we'll let Edmonds play the first 5 innings and then let McGee come in for defensive purposes, and you won't lose much on the offensive, but Jimmy Ballgame was just a tremendous, tremendous outfielder for us, World Series champion. Now, right field, oh my goodness. I feel like I'm probably leaving somebody out. I don't know. Who would you put in right field? You got any opinion? Hey, we'll just leave it empty. With that lineup, we don't need anybody out there. Mrs. McGee's little boy can cover. They can just put him out there, and he can cover the whole field anyway. So we don't need a right field. No right fielder, although I'm sure we're missing somebody. So, right. I don't know. Skipper, we've got Tony, we got Whitey. Again, they're co-managers. And I'm sure we'd have a great bench if we think about it very much.
Who would be your pitcher?
Oh man, good question.
See there.
So here we go. So, Mr. Gibson, one of the greatest ever. You got to have him, but for my money, and of course, Gibby was a little bit older. I didn't get to see him pitch. Of course, he did finish a game with a broken leg once. He took a line drive off his leg, like in the 8th inning or something, and finished the game.
And see, now NBA players and all them are playing. They don't play because they hurt their finger.
Yeah, right.
Bob Gibson played with a broken leg.
And won a game. Yeah. Won a game on a broken leg. Of course, pitched a no-hitter also, which that reminds me of one of my greatest, Jack Buck. Jack Buck's going to be the announcer. Mike Shannon will also be in the booth with him. But one of Jack Buck's greatest calls when Bob Gibson late in his career, maybe his last year even, threw a no-hitter, Jack Buck goes, I wish you could have been at the ballpark tonight. It would have made a grown man cry. Well, that's saying something. But anyway, so Gibby, but I cannot leave Chris Carpenter off anything. To me, Chris Carpenter not being in the Cardinal organization, heck, he could probably even be, if he come out of retirement and start pitching again, he'd be our best pitcher now. Chris Carpenter, a great competitor. If he could have stayed healthy, he'd have won 300 games. Of course, his career was beset with injuries. In fact, all through that big run we had, Wainwright and Carpenter only pitched 1 year together in the playoffs. They were only 1 year of all that whole run. That was in 2009 when Holliday dropped the ball in the first game. The Dodgers beat us in the playoffs. But anyway, so through all that, either one or the other one was healthy. I do not count 2006 when Wainwright was the closer in the bullpen, like when he's a rookie. But anyway, so Carpenter has to be on that team to win. Anybody says otherwise is itching for a fight.
During the course of the interview, I was asked a bunch of questions, great questions, and I tried to give the best answers I could. But through the course of it, one of the questions was name the greatest all-time lineup for the St. Louis Cardinals. So I took great care and was thinking very hard so I wouldn't leave anybody out and get the right thing. And lo and behold, I left out the greatest Cardinal of them all, Stan the Man Musial. So I asked Wynn if I could, before you watch the episode, just make amends, get my street cred back, let everybody know that Stan the Man could play any year, any position on any Cardinal team throughout the great history of the Cardinals. So just wanted to make that, let everybody know that it was a mistake. I've corrected it, and we can go ahead and watch the video. I would like to introduce you to my friend Gibby. who is named after the great pitcher Bob Gibson of the St. Louis Cardinals. That's how big a fan I truly am. And maybe in the next video, I'll show you our bull, Carp, named after the great Chris Carpenter.
Hey everybody, as part of the episode of Heartbeat in the Stands, the initial episode I might mention from Winning Studios, I've been asked to show you my ball collection, my memorabilia cave. Now I will warn you, this is not for many eyes only. Only a few people have been able to access this. So please keep it secret once you go in here. But let's go see what we can find out in here. As you can see, I have various collections, mostly, if not almost entirely, St. Louis Cardinal. I have a few favorite footballs from different people, but up here on this shelf, a long time ago when the Cardinals were doing so well, I thought, man, wouldn't it, I kind of collected a few balls in my life, but I thought, man, wouldn't it be great when the Cardinals won the World Series in 2006, the first time since 1982. However, we did get cheated in 1985. But I thought, man, wouldn't it be great if I bought a bunch of World Series balls, 2006 World Series balls, and I went around the country getting all autographs from everyone that was on the roster. Some people had been traded, some people did all the things, some people were in the minors, so I had to go visit a lot of places. I had access to and availability to do that, so I decided to do it. And so this shelf is all the 2006 World Series Cardinal winners on World Series balls that were on the playoff roster. And then of course they messed up and won in 2011. I had to do it again. So I did the same thing. Here's the 2011 roster of baseballs on World Series 2011 balls. Down here I have just various other favorite Cardinals of mine throughout the years and are on there. And then over here I have a collection of Hall of Fame baseballs from everybody I could get. And if I ever come back to do a second episode, I'll tell you about my Hank Aaron story when I'm very disappointed with myself. But that's what that is. I just have other Cardinal memorabilia, bobbleheads, such. Got some Yachty tumblers. I got a few footballs, but very few. And over here, I also would like to show you, of course, my Big Lebowski collector's edition from one of the greatest movies of all time. And then up here, I have it was given to me by a wonderful friend of mine, Tracy Johnston, a Ric Flair boot. And of course, I grew up on wrestling back in the 70s. My favorites were the Assassins, the Kentuckians, Chatty Okuchi, Yaso Fuji, but my all-time favorite wrestler, of course, was Apache Gringo. But I got a Ric Flair boot, woo! And I'm very popular, very proud to have that. So that's just a few things I have around. I've got some more places. We have a little barn up in Missouri. I have some more stuff up there. But this is the gist of it. Thanks for viewing the Man Cave, Ball Cave with me.
But man, it's been awesome to have you here, and I always love the stories that you have about the Cardinals and stuff like that. And going into the room in your house, it's like the holy grail because you have a lot of really good players on the wall, and you collect pretty much all sports. I believe you have a pair of boots signed by Ric Flair.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Woo! Yeah, yeah. Now my buddy Tracy, shout out to Tracy, he got me those. We were kind of into the wrestling stuff there for a while and this and that, and Ric Flair, big Ric Flair fans, and he got me that. So yeah, I got that. And, yeah, it's not just baseball, but baseball is probably the main pursuit of it all. But yeah, it's fun.
All right, well, that'll about do it for us here.
Well, wait.
Oh, wait a minute.
Let me ask you. So after this show, you better get a bunch more Cardinal fans around this Martinsville, Virginia area. Because this should really be getting people turned on to the Cardinals and forget about the Braves. And who else does people like around here?
It's the Baltimore Orioles.
Oh.
Because they're the closest, yeah, and the Nationals, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get a bunch more Cardinal fans after this show. I appreciate the time. It's been great. You did a great job interviewing me. And it's my pleasure to be on the first person on your show. This could be like a trivia question in a few years.
Oh, yeah. So you never know, in a couple years might start asking questions like we do for Big Lebowski and stuff like that. You know?
Yeah. And we talk about Indiana basketball.
Yeah.
We can do a lot of stuff. And especially like when we win the World Series in 20 years or something, I'll be back and you can talk to me about it again.